Hello, everybody, and welcome to your daily lighting critique. Today's Thursday. As always, we're sponsored by my hammering neighbor upstairs, so you'll hear that tap, tap, tap in the background. So I want to start with, there's two animations, and then we're going to jump into the still images. The first one is from Diana here. So she actually, she has two versions of this. The lighting looks great. We're all good on the lighting. The one thing that we're trying to take a look at is she's got two versions of the hair. One where this is like the original without like a more dynamic hair sim, and we've got another one where she's included the fur cache on the hair sim, and the hair is just a little bit more dynamic, I would say. And so she was just wondering, because she's done a lot of work to light the face, if it's worth having the hair sim in there. So I'll kind of open this up to you guys. I think it's kind of funny. I'm gonna actually, but the hair looks different. I was gonna see if it would be possible to mix them, because I really love what the hair sim does as she flips around here. But I realized that the hair is like it actually looks different. Like this has got more of a tip to it, where this has more of a rounded edge to it. So what I think is, for me, for your demo reel, I think you should probably include the non-crazy hair one. I think, like the founder of the Griffin Academy was asking about this one. For him, I would send the one with the hair sim on it. But for your reel, I would say probably probably do the non-simp one. I don't know. Diane, I'm curious to hear what you think about it. But let's see, because it's tough, because this one is just like an overall more polished thing. And you know what? The lighting on her face isn't bad. Honestly, we might be splitting hairs here. This is probably probably overthinking it. If it was me, like I said, I would do this for the animation side, and then for your personal side, I would just put the original on. Honestly, there's
I
so
like
much.
the original
You do?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think honestly, there's so much else going on that's probably not a main focus. But I think this looks great overall. Really, like. By the way, we haven't clapped for this yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. If anyone's like runs out, so clap and say great job with this. You really crushed it. Yay! Yay! Ruby's game on. Yeah. All right. So yeah, either way, you can't go too wrong. Okay. So let's hop over into so Hannah posted this. I didn't have a chance to download it and move it over into Sync Sketch, but we will take a look at it here. So I've commented on this before, but I just love how much specularity you're getting in the shadows. Like just watch the arm, like down here. This is kind of a textbook, like how to get shaping in dark areas without direct light. It's reflecting bright areas surrounding it, and I think it's just working out really well. Some areas that I think that you could improve upon. So the eyes right now are bright, but they kind of end abruptly. With all this kind of haze going on, I would actually expect there to be a little bit of a glow around the eyes, and I think that could improve that. The other thing that I would do is, similarly, if possible, to add a little post effect blur or glow around the edges of the door, and then outside here as well. So even though there's a window that's kind of murky, like this, for the outside of that window up there, feels a little bit extra gray. Like I think that would still be brighter, and then once it gets bright, it kind of glows up a little bit. And then for these, I was just pause the recording to pause this, but so for these up here, these window or I'm sorry, the ceiling lights, they're a little hard edged. And really what it is like the ambience on the glass still feels a little bit too ambient. Like I said, the bulbs themselves are kind of almost glowing, and they're starting to teeter right between being turned on and turned off. And I think it would be better just to make all of those a little bit darker because those lights aren't really helping us out too much. And then let's see to the end. Nice to see the inside of the mouth. That light at the end, the shadow is a little bit too sharp. I know it's a relatively small light source, but like what we're seeing is like this shape on his face is a little kind of confusing and distracting. I would just soften that up a little bit. And just by increasing the radius. Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Mike, I think at the end of that tongue is little bit more specularity. It should have some roughness.
Yeah, you're right. It's a little like it's almost like the diffuse value should come down a little bit, and especially like underneath, it should feel really wet in there. Like it should feel because that's like the scary thing is like I don't want to go in that mouth. They're sharp. Like because whenever you got a monster coming at the camera, the two things you really want to emphasize are the teeth being sharp and everything else being like wet and like it's just you don't want that to be a place you want to go. That's a really good point, Abishek. Thank you. So just emphasize those two. All right, cool. Okay, let's hop into some stills. So Abishek, start with yours and then we'll go through alphabetically here. Yeah, okay. So we've got your, this is the blurred mock-up. This is the newer version. This is the older one. That additional brightness on the cards works out really, really well. I think everything's looking great. The one thing I want to see for the next iteration is I'm realizing now as we're looking at this, that we have an opportunity to create a little bit more warmth out of the spotlight that's coming down. To create a little bit of a warmth separating it from the background. Because like if this is a tungsten light, a regular household light bulb, there would actually be a little bit more warmth in it, a little bit more orangey reddish glow. And I think that by doing that, let's mock this up here real quick. And by the way, I do like the additional depth of field that you provided. So if we keep that background kind of cooler, and allow this to get a little bit, this is probably a little bit too much, but a little bit warmer. Do you see how now that brings out the redness of this character even stronger and allows like everything to kind of pop forward a little bit more? So I think just by tweaking, and I think you can get there just by tweaking the color of that light and pushing a little more red orange in there. And
Okay.
And I think everything else is feeling pretty good. I would start to pull off some of the haze a little bit. Let me do this. So as we get closer to the foreground, I think I just want to see a little bit more. A little bit more dark values as we get closer to the foreground, just to kind of create a little bit more depth in the image. So like, because what's happening is that haze is kind of overtaking everything or in the surroundings, and we want it to kind of fade off as we get closer to the camera. Let's see. But yeah, like I was looking at this and like
Okay,
the way.
got it.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, sorry, I thought I interrupted you there. I was looking at this one as an example of like because I saw a little bit of the coolness back here and a little bit of warmth here, and I was like, oh, that's kind of working out well. And like the warm tones in this character, and they've kind of desaturated the background. So thank you for posting this reference. It does help out a lot. So I think that would really help the colors there. All right.
And Mike, I think I will add this animation tomorrow only.
Okay.
I will add it. and I was just thinking to add it in low-res camera.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
I if it possible, I will able to show you on Monday camera animation and final render output in low
Great.
res
Great. Great. That would be cool. Yeah, because
because tomorrow is a Friday and you will be off on Saturday Sunday. No, weekend
right.
will be off.
Right. So
So
that'll give
fine.
you a great reason to lock up your computer with a render and you won't be able to use it and then you can go enjoy something else.
Yeah.
All right. All right, cool. Okay, so next up we have
Okay.
Jordan. Oh yeah. Thank you, Abishek. And I'll let you
Bye.
can go enjoy yourself now.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so we've got Jordan here. This is his latest. This is a previous version. I think I like the update overall. I think there are a couple of things that are missing from it. I loved this kind of green haze back there, and I think we can add that back in. I think you can push that a little bit more strongly here in the update, because I think that can come in this way and kind of. And I know it's not like realistic, but kind of fall behind that character, and then his dark silhouette could kind of pop forward a little bit off of that. I'm also missing a little bit of this. So on the screen left hand side, like you took out this trash can. I almost miss it a little bit because I like seeing these values. I know it's distracting from probably our main thing, which is this character standing by the fire. But it's just nice to kind of see this a little, like this underlighting kind of adds a little bit more mood to it. So maybe it would just be a matter of moving it back further. I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's kind of cool. The other thing, this train that's down here feels distorted some way. Like it feels stretched in a weird proportion. I would almost take it out because I think there's enough signs of life throughout to where that's not really all that necessary. I love the shaping you're getting on these buildings back here, like this like pocket of light in through here. I love the warmth kind of falling off as we go back this way. I love like again this pocket of brightness here as it falls off. You're doing a really good job in a difficult situation of creating a lot of shaping all over. Sorry, I'm just looking at one last thing. I'm wondering too if maybe we've got this green light coming in here. I wonder if there's more opportunity for this light to go out a little further, and almost because it's kind of creating a nice little halo around the character. But I wonder if that couldn't just be like a little bit bigger, and kind of encompass that whole thing. It might be a matter of increasing the radius of this light. I'm not sure how this works or the fall off works. But I'm thinking that increasing the radius will actually soften some of the light in the surrounding. I think that could work out well. Also, there's something funny about this reflection because it almost feels like it should be more like this way, just because it should fall in line with like it falls in line with the camera. It just feels funny that it's off a little bit. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But yeah, this is looking really good. Do you if anyone else has any thoughts, feel free to chime in. All right, cool. All right, next up, I want to take a look at Justin's here. So we've got 4 stills. Robots looking good. Characters looking good. So you were talking. Okay, so I wanted to focus in on the hair, and you're right. I think the hair might be getting a little bit too. I love that we're infusing some of this kind of red color into it, but I think that we've kind of uniformly lifted it. And so what I did was I wanted to find some reference for this. So I pulled up a couple images here that I saw of women with dreadlocks that are kind of similar, and I was looking at some reference here, and like I think this is obviously too strong because this is like an outdoor daylight scene, but like I love like seeing this level of like specularity in there is really interesting, and it's tight. Like in this particular case, it's tighter than I thought it would be. This one, it's a little more subtle, but it's not quite as bright, but you can still see that the specular highlight coming across the dreadlocks it's pretty tight. And this one too. This one actually has more variation within the diffuse color. So there's like some areas that are darker, some areas that are lighter, and then this kind of tight specular highlight. So what I think for yours, it would be a matter of like, I like that we have this color in here. I wonder if we can break it up a little bit so that some areas get this red and some areas don't. Like maybe the reds just kind of get isolated at the tip. I'm not quite sure how it's set up, if that would be easy to do or if that's very difficult. But then in terms of the specular highlight, I think we need to make it a little bit tighter. And I think that would be the way to go with that. So just those two, like, so just really focusing on the hair to get that right, because I think that everything else is looking good, and we can probably do a low res. Same thing like Abishek was doing. We can do a low res render test, or a render test, a full res, depending on how long it's taking over the weekend, and then we can take a look at it again on Monday. But yeah, this is looking really good. Okay, next up we have Molly. Molly is, I believe this is your first submission, so welcome, Molly. Molly's in a cafe, and she's gonna maybe join in if possible. So if the noise changes, there she is. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, great. So I think that you're like clearly there's a couple things with this first assignment, and one is just like understanding, processing, and reacting to reference. And I think that you're really doing that. So the areas that you were focusing in on are just kind of like this pocket of light back behind, like these two pockets of light behind the character, and then like kind of this top-down lighting that's really hyper focused on the face. And I think that you're kind of getting that really well. And there's like a pretty studio centric rim like directly on the back of the character here. I think that we're getting that. There are a couple things that I would adjust. Is I think that the circles behind the character can get a little bit softer. I think they're a little tight right now compared to the reference. Also, I also think that this light is this shadow is a little bit too tight. I was seeing it under the nose, and that was looking pretty good. But then once we get it kind of down here, it starts to soften. So I think there's more room to increase the radius of that light and soften that up a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Subsurface on the ears is looking good. Her hair kind of blocks it, so we don't really see that in the reference. But it's a little bit over the top, but I think it's good. I also, and this is a personal choice, but I also think that the eyes of the character can get a little bit brighter.
Yes, I had a hard time with that because no matter what I did with the area light, whether I increased it in scale, it wouldn't increase on the reflection.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So so two things to do with the eyes. Number one would be just to boost their material value, like increase the diffuse on the material, and then number two is if you're going for reflections, I like to, instead of using lights, I actually like to use like a white plane, like a square or a circle or just like a whatever shape, and keep it off camera, and that will reflect in the eyes a little bit better than an actual light source.
I see. Okay.
So
sure,
give that
I'll
a
do
try.
those
Yeah,
changes.
give that a try.
Okay.
Cool.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
you're
also
very
have it's an unrelated question, but I
Please.
was working on the monthly challenge, and I had a hard time figuring out how to do a depth of field. Is that something you do in comp, or is that something you do, I guess,
In render, so if you would have asked me that like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I'd be like, oh, absolutely do it in comp. But because of IPR renders, because of the faster feedback that you get on stuff, and just like the fact that hardware is a little bit better, and the fact that in render depth of field has actually improved. So here's the deal. In render depth of field, if you do it in Arnold or Redshift or whatever, it looks better because it's actually able to calculate 3D space. They've got some bokeh things in there. It looks ultimately better. The downside is it's harder to work with because you actually have to you can't. It takes a while to adjust it. Like you adjust the setting, then you have to wait a little while, wait for it to render out. Then you adjust something else, you wait a while.
Yes.
So for me, It's if you can, especially if it's a still. I tend to do those now more in render than I ever have before because I can kind of dial it in right at the end. And then, but if it's like an animated shot where the depth of field is changing, it's more dynamic, it takes a little bit more difficulty. That's when I do the technique of where I render out the Z pass and just do it in the comp. So we've got both of those. You probably haven't gotten to that point in the lectures. I'm trying to think in the Arnold, like if you're using, are you using Arnold for this?
Yes, I'm using Arnold.
Okay. In the Arnold workshop, there's a lecture about using in-render depth of field there. If you're going to do it the compositing way in the lighting for animated film class, there's a lesson in there about rendering out Z depth and how you use that in the comp as well. So it's honestly up to you. But for you for the challenge, I would probably just do it in render.
Okay. All right.
Sound good?
Sure. I'll give that a try. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Mike.
Yeah, of course. All right. Next up, we have Rick and then Ruby. I'm sorry to make you wait until the end. We'll get you on the next one. So with Rick, here is the image, and this was just the key light. So I just want to focus on this for right now and get this going. So with the key light, I think a few things. One, it can be brighter. Like if we're talking about inside a space and there's bright light coming in from the outside, something like this, direct sunlight inside a dark interior, that sunlight can be a lot brighter. Like this could go more. I think you can go softer. These lines coming through, because again, if this is like, think about the light sources being something this big, because that's the way that the sun is reacting. It would actually soften up that shadow just a little bit more. Number 3 is it's interesting that there's kind of a consistency in the light. Like I would expect it to be brighter, and this could just be this could be the way that the light is reacting to space. But for me, it feels like it would be brighter around the source, and then the intensity would go down as we go away. And the way that I would do that is you can do it one of two ways. I would, you can either light it with a spotlight that's kind of far away and focused in through the windows, and then you can dial up the sun that way. If you would rather emphasize this fall off coming across the room, which I think you probably should, I would put like an area light out here and allow that to be like the sunlight, because that will actually drop off a little more quickly than the spotlight will, and give you some more emphasis on it feeling more like a bright sunny day with a softer shadow a little bit. And then I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say was you could either do that with a big area light, or if you're at Arnold, you can do a sky dome and then make a portal light and put that out there. Different situations, it works better. It's actually, I mean, like the visual outcome will be roughly the same. It's just a matter of like, sometimes the portal light will render faster with less samples, where the area light will require more samples. But sometimes the area light just like kind of looks a little bit better. So I usually try both and see which one works for a given situation. The other thing is like there seems to be some atmospheric or something in here. So just make sure when you're lighting this, because like I can see there's like this gray haze over the flamingo and the water a little bit. So once you're kind of back in there, just make sure that haze isn't there and that's always rendered separately so that you can dial that in the post process. And then after we get that key light looking, then we'll come back to looking at this as a whole, because I think that'll drastically change this image. The only other two things I'll tell you to watch out for is the amount of haze that's over top of everything is pretty strong. And then number 2 is outside the window, it's just the image is just too saturated. We don't usually, because it's so overexposed out there, usually the colors get washed out too. And so we usually don't see that level of saturation out there. Okay, next up, we have Ruby, and this is looking really fantastic overall. I think that, so one thing too about the feathers, actually I can just look at this, is that think, yeah. So this is where we're in right now. For tomorrow or for Monday, I would render the bird or the whole image, depending on how you have this broken out, at a higher resolution. Because I think what we're seeing is some of the noise in there from it just being a little bit smaller. And so I would like to evaluate it at a larger size, just because what happens is it's like the feathers, or in this case the fur, just falls below 1 pixel, and so like you just kind of like it'll render here and then not render here, then render here, then render here, and it looks a little bit janky. These leaves are looking great. I think those are really, really cool. These down here, I think can still get darker on top, like the kind of broader curved ones. I think that those can still get a little brighter because they just feel a little bit like gamma, like they almost feel like gammaed up, if that's a term. Like they feel a little bit too lifted. Let's see.
Like kind of more matching the color of the other ones.
A little bit more. They can be different than those a little bit. But yeah, I think that matching that color, because that color just works really well. And then once we get that toned down, it kind of brings more attention to the bird.
Okay, and what do you think about the specularity on those?
It's great, and I think the
On the
bump is
same
great. Yeah, I think it's great. Watch out! Oh wait, did I just do that? Oh, wait, I did that. Never mind. I was like, "There's a couple lines down there." That was because I did that weird Photoshop thing. I would increase the depth of field a little bit more. I think you could actually, because this is so, like, this bird is little, right? Like I think it's a baby. So I think we can actually, and are you doing the blur in comp? Or to go back to the previous question? Okay. I think you can actually, play around with it, but I think you can actually, if it was me, I would bring it even closer to the camera and even play with the idea of possibly even like this stick that's right behind him. Like maybe even that gets a little out of focus, and then his foreground elements get a little out of focus too, and really just makes it so that the bird itself is the only thing that's really sharp. And then maybe like some of these leaves that are directly in the same depth space as the bird. So I think you can both increase the amount that's on the far background and then creep it in a little bit closer too.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is looking great though. This is really, really good.
Thank you. What do you think about the hue, like the color of the white feather?
I like the color overall. Better. Yeah, it's better. I also, but it's and the reason why I was hesitating and giving notes on it is I just kind of want to see it at full res, because there's some, like there's this area right there that's getting a little bit too bright, but I can't tell if that's just like a low res thing or what the deal is. So we'll take a look at it at the high resolution.
Okay.
Great. All right, great work, everybody. All right, cool. And let me know if, like I said, post to the forum. I will be circling back later to answer any questions, and I will see you all soon. I'll see you all tomorrow. All right, be good. Happy learning, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.